Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and today I've got the most important matchup in Sunday's Vikings-Packers game, but I'm going to need people here to disagree with me, so let's meet the guys.
I'm Luke Braun. I'm from Locked On Vikings, and I'm going to lie to you about how optimistic I am.
I'm Arif Hasan, and this begins the first of 3 weeks where I get to crap on North Dakota State players.
I'm Alec Lewis of The Athletic, and I have a microwave as opposed to Sam's fireplace. I need to get the fireplace, but no, thanks for having me, guys.
Checks in the mail, Alec. It's the Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next-level Vikings football. So join in with The Athletic's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
Vikings-Packers storylines abound today on the Minnesota Football Party. Once again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. You can watch this show on YouTube, subscribe there, or get any of our shows, the Ron Johnson Show, Superior Sports Talk, or our post-game postcasts to get instant reaction, or wherever you get your podcasts, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Vikings-Packers storylines. We've got a 4-minute drill where we're going to make an argument that the Vikings will win the division this year. But we'll start with storylines. Luke Braun, you can go first. I'd like the top storyline for everybody in the room, and then I, as the judge and jury, will determine which is the most compelling to me. But we start with Locked On Vikings. Luke Braun, kick us off. Top storyline, Vikings-Packers.
I'll keep it broad. This is the Vikings' chance to prove, and I know it's the first game, but this is the chance to prove that they are going to contend for this division, right? If they can go into this game and walk out with a win against the mighty, big, bad, fearsome Packers, then I think the nation is going to take them a lot more seriously than they've been taking them. There's a lot of optimism around the Vikings, even nationally. Their win total has gone up a whole game since March, at least on betonline.ag. So that means that maybe some people are believing that the Vikings can be more than just a middle team. This is a chance to go prove that.
Arif?
Yeah, I think one storyline that, maybe doesn't grab as many national headlines, but will be an interesting one to monitor is the importance of having an elite receiver. I think that that's going to be something that'll be tested not just in this game, but by a few teams across the league this year. So, of course, the Packers lost Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll see how important an elite receiver is to Derek Carr and how important it is not to Aaron Rodgers. Same thing with Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes. But the Vikings, of course, do have an elite receiver in Justin Jefferson, plus a pretty good supporting cast around him. So we'll see kind of what happens there, whether or not an elite receiver has the ability to change the game regardless of quarterback capability, and also whether or not Christian Watson, who's missed the last couple of weeks because of injury and sounds like he won't be ready to be, a full starter yet, has the ability to really replace the wide receiver one role in the Packers offense. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but we'll see kind of how important it is to develop that kind of wide receiver one position.
Alec?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's what are these new schemes going to look like in action? I mean, obviously we've seen and heard a lot about what Kevin O'Connell has brought over from the Los Angeles Rams. And then we know, obviously, with the trend of the league defensively and Ed Donatel's scheme, given that he learned a lot of it from Vic Fangio. I mean, we know, I think, some of what the bones of these schemes are, but to see them against a Packers team that obviously has a bunch of players, talented players on both sides, it kind of unveil all at once, to me is what's going to be most interesting and I think just very exciting to kind of see in action.
Yeah, I'm actually going to side with Alec on this one. And Alec Lewis, The Athletic, Arif Hasan's new partner writing about the Vikings there. I really like that storyline because Vikings fans in the Mike Zimmer era experienced 6 new offensive coordinators. but they weren't really allowed to get too excited about any of them because they knew that those coordinators were just basically carrying out Mike Zimmer's will. They were going to be run first. They were not going to be particularly creative. And now KOC has been blessed with this unbelievable opportunity where he actually inherits in like a very high ceiling offense, and he comes from this really creative coaching tree, and he's got a chance to actually do what he wants to do. Nobody's telling him how to get things done. He gets to be the play caller who's in charge, and his vision for this offense actually gets to come to fruition. So I think seeing how Kevin O'Connell approaches this schematically and seeing if he's actually good at this and play sequencing and not running on 2nd and 10 constantly like one Clint Kubiak is going to be pretty interesting to see in this game. Luke Braun, your thoughts on sort of the KOC factor against Green Bay and whether the element of surprise is an advantage for the Vikings in this game?
Well, they sure think so, because they have been really concerned with protecting that element of surprise. It's Matt LaFleur. He's got about 9 out of 10 same cards up his sleeve. So I don't think you're going to get like a big element of surprise. But I do, this is going to be the first time. Like, all those new coordinators, the last 3 of them ran basically the same scheme. It was all the Gary Kubiak scheme, whether it was Stefanski running it or Gary himself or Gary's kid. Like, that's the same stuff. So you're not learning new terminologies. You're not having new backbones. It was built off of outside zone and bootlegs and maybe a little bit of a variation here or there depending on who's pulling the levers, but that's not like a transition. It's not, we got to learn a whole new offensive coordinator. No, it's the same. It's a different guy picking off the same menu. This is totally different. This is new terminology. This is new language. This is new philosophies. And for better or worse, they have like maybe one of the most challenging games on their whole schedule right off the bat when you've had as little time as possible to learn it. So that's going to be what I'm looking for right off the bat here against the Packers is how well do they have all this new stuff down? And the same thing goes on defense. It's totally new stuff and everybody's got a lot to learn. And that's kind of, I think, why they've approached preseason the way that they have and like waiting to evaluate until like proper camp started and using the spring as just like orientation basically.
Do we have any data, and I ask you, Arif, because your mind is like a steel trap. Do we have good examples of coaches that have emerged immediately with sort of their first time being a head coach and had immediate success, other than Matt LaFleur, of course, who did that with Green Bay? Is there data on this?
Generally speaking, the percentage odds of like a new head coach being good are pretty low, right? Like the fact of the matter is, I mean, coaching turnover is really high in the NFL. 1/3 of coaches every year seem to lose their job. It's a little bit less than that, but generally, and a lot of those coaches were first time hires. They never get hired again to be head coaches. But if you want to find like first year head coaches that are pretty good, I mean, you don't have to go very far up the tree. I mean, Sean McVay had an explosive year as a first-year head coach. So I think that is a pretty good example of one. But we also have like examples of first-year head coaches that their first year was pretty good, then the rest kind of, wasn't there. I remember Raheem Morris's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another young coach, first-time head coach. That first year wasn't so bad, and then after that, it just kind of fell apart. So I don't have like the hard numbers on how often first-time head coaches come out of the gate swinging. But especially recently, we've seen a lot of instances where those coaches perform really well. Mike Vrabel with the Titans, I think, is another really good example. First-year head coach does really well, and it's not quite like the LaFleur example where you had an elite quarterback there. I mean, Vrabel had to hire some people that made Tannehill a really high-level quarterback, just like McVay had to figure out how to turn Jared Goff into a high-level quarterback after a nearly disastrous year, an actually disastrous year with Jeff Fisher. So certainly, we have some examples in the NFL. Pete Carroll took a second to get online. Bill Belichick took a second to get online. But, for the most part, in the recent NFL, we've seen some first-year head coaches for the first time as head coaches, really make some headway.
Yeah, Eric Eager of PFF actually did a good study on this, of the impact of new play callers in particular. And oftentimes the biggest jump or the greatest variance happens in year one. But that's often biased because you're inheriting maybe a bad situation. In Kevin O'Connell's case, he's trying to get a team from good to great. As we get kind of back around the horn now to Alec, tertiary storylines in this game. I think we've kind of nailed the big ones that are going to capture national headlines, but I want off the beaten path. I'll throw one out there to start. Vikings haven't been over 500 in 3 years. I mean, the bad starts really plagued 2020 and 2021 teams. They haven't been above 500 since 2019, to reiterate. That's something that I think fans, even though it's an arbitrary benchmark, fans care about that. Like, fans don't want to say, here we go again. So that's just an interesting element to this game, is that if they win, they are technically over 500 for the first time in 3 years. Is there anything sort of in the weeds, Alec, that grips you about this matchup?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of works along those lines. And to me, it's the offensive line. I mean, going up against Kenny Clark to start out. I mean, I think if the Vikings are going to exceed expectations, either here locally or nationally, I mean, I think the offensive line, especially the interior, we got to start with Garrett Bradbury and Ezra Cleveland and obviously Ed Ingram. I think with the matchup they face with the Green Bay defensive front this weekend, I mean, if they can hold their own in some capacity, I think that would go a long way to obviously speaking to what you were talking about, Sam, in terms of as far as the record goes. So I think, I mean, that's a spot that I think I'll be watching pretty closely, and I think Vikings fans obviously will be as well. But I think positionally, there are certain matchups like that I think will speak to ultimately what this team is capable of.
Yeah, there's a concerning little nugget from that Week 17 game last year where O'Neal, Darisaw, and Cleveland, the three best linemen on that line, got beaten for 10 pressures combined. If that happens on Sunday, the Vikings are in some serious trouble if their tackles aren't holding up. I think that's another good one. I've got another tertiary storyline, Shannon Sullivan revenge game. Now, I know it's a little tongue-in-cheek, and there's a bigger revenge game with Za'Darius Smith on tap, but Shannon Sullivan is a guy that Aaron Rodgers could more reasonably exploit in the secondary. So I guess I'm watching to see if Rodgers believes he can beat Sullivan and who they put up against him, because Rodgers is known to pick on players that he views as vulnerable. Luke Braun, your thoughts on Shandon?
I don't know what kind of personnel we're going to see from the Packers. Will Shandon be on the field, or are they going to go like 21? Because they're so in love with those two running backs with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And at least according to Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers, they're going to go two back a lot with those two guys, or like that appears to be their plan. So if they do that, but then like three wide, then you might have Shannon Sullivan on the field. But otherwise, we might be a little bit more in base. So Shannon Sullivan might not even get a chance to prove that. But if he is on the field, if it is a nickel package, I think, yeah, he's the weak link there, unless Cameron Bynum doesn't bear out the way that it looks like he's supposed to bear out based on camp. There's still, I think, a little bit unknown. It was like, does that translate into, when the bullets really start flying? But I wonder, I'd be curious to see what kind of action he actually sees versus like somebody like, I don't know, James Lynch or whoever's going to play on the defensive line and base.
That's interesting because it seems like both teams want the other to think that they're just going to, kind of spread the field and use their wide receivers. Maybe less so Green Bay because they just don't have as many wide receivers. But for sure the Vikings are hoping the Packers don't expect heavy looks. And I think we all kind of know that they're going to use C.J. Ham. They're going to use a couple tight ends now and then. And I also look to that Rasul Douglas matchup too. And that's probably the key matchup for me in this game actually, is Rasul Douglas moving positions. He's coming off an outlier season where he played outside corner. Now he's going to play inside pretty much full time against whomever. Could be Thielen, could be Jefferson, could be Osborne in the slot. I feel like that's a weakness in that Packers secondary. And I know he was good last year. He had 5 picks, but picks are often not sustainable. That can inflate your PFF score. I think Rasul Douglas can be exploited, more so than Alexander, more so than Stokes. Arif Hasan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that always struck me as kind of an interesting move because, typically the skill set you want in the slot is somebody who's got a lot of quickness. And for somebody with his size and length, certainly Rasul Douglas has a lot of quickness. But I think when you compare him to some of the quicker receivers that you find in the slot around the NFL, he doesn't really stack up, especially, when you've got, players like, Adam Thielen that do a really great job of setting up breaks and getting out of them. So I'm kind of curious what the Vikings see as the optimal matchup there. Personally, I think that, for most games, most seasons, I think that Justin Jefferson is probably a pretty good matchup in the slot against a lot of the corners that you find there. But I think just from a skill set perspective, I'd like to see Adam Thielen in there a lot, especially because I don't think there's a Cooper Kupp role in this offense in the same way that people have been talking about all season. And I think that, when you take on the roles that occurred in the slot for the Rams, Adam Thielen's a really good fit for a lot of what they do there. And so I think having him, block down on somebody like Rasul Douglas or moving past Douglas to get on a linebacker, I think that that's something that you want to see. And then in the passing game, when you've got that kind of quickness, when you've got the ability to exploit some of these longer guys that have, some movement issues, and again, better movement issues than most people his size, I think that I would probably expect to see Adam Thielen there a lot. I don't really want in that matchup for, your typical speed slot guy to try and get downfield against him because he can make up that distance with length. I think you want to set up two-way goes. I think you want to set up option and choice routes. I think you want to set up, these situations where Douglas has to not just make choices, but make quick movements where his length is not going to really help him as much. And so to me, that screams Adam Thielen. I think out of those three receivers, that's kind of the matchup that I'd hunt.
Alec, you mentioned the interior line. Any other key matchups or key players to watch on the field?
No, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, at least in my head, to see how they do utilize. I mean, you guys mentioned CJ Ham, but and I know Arif sees this at a level that I have not yet, but CJ Ham's usage to me is going to be really interesting, and as well as just the entire slate of running backs. I mean, we obviously saw, if you watch preseason, what guys like Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu are capable of, and obviously Alexander Madison is present. So to me, that it's something that I think I'll watch. And then, I mean, I think earlier Luke mentioned Cam Bynum and the preseason he's had. I think Cam Dantzler is another guy that, just given what happened last year and the way he's been discussed this preseason, to see how he plays against Aaron Rodgers, who obviously I don't need to provide any insight into. It's going to be obviously a test and one that I think will provide a lot of insight.
Around the corner, Alec is going to take part in his first ever 4-minute drill as we make an argument for why the Vikings could leapfrog the Packers and win the division. But before we get to that, have you tried the new Built Bar yet, gentlemen? And if you haven't, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest treats. It's chocolatey. It's cookie dough. It's light. There's a chewy texture, 100% real chocolate, and mind blown, amazing for you. 15 grams of protein, only 160 calories. So don't walk, run to Built.com, snag a box for you and your family, or hey, just keep it to yourself and stash it in your sock drawer. Built Bars have the new cookie dough chunk puff. Again, 100% real chocolate. Did I mention that before? They're great about Built is great because they're built with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently. You're absolutely going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKEDON15. And folks, if you're liking this video, make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Leave a comment down below, get in arguments, do whatever you want, but it does help other people find the video. We would appreciate that. It's time, gentlemen, for our 4-minute drill. Should we have the newcomer start? I think we should. Alec, we're going to put you on the spot right away. There's a minute on the clock. Yeah, I know. It's you. Good luck. Walked into the lion's den, my friend. 1 minute on the clock. You've got to make a convincing argument why the Vikings will leapfrog the Packers and win the division. There's going to be a clock that you have to watch, so you got to manage time. Let's see what you got.
Okay, first, you called it the lion's den. You have a fireplace behind you. That is the den. Second, I know Arif has to be laughing with me on the spot here. And yes, this is how I'm wasting 10 seconds of my time. Look, I think if there is a reason that the Vikings will leapfrog the Packers here in this division, I think it is just it obviously an improved defense, specifically in the secondary and with pressure in terms of Danielle Hunter and Za'Darius Smith. And if those guys stay healthy, I think it's an important facet of it. And then offensively, I think you hope that Kevin O'Connell in the new system allows Kirk Cousins to nitpick defenses in a way that holds up over the course of an entire season. And I think if matchups are if Kevin O'Connell can find the correct matchups for Kirk Cousins and Kirk can find them on the field, I think that there is a possibility of it.
And he hits the post with expertise. Thanks, Alec. Arif, what do you got?
All right, if it's going to be the same question, I'm going to give a pretty similar answer. I'm going to start with that pass rush. I think Danielle Hunter, Za'Darius Smith, the evidence suggests, based off of the research that I've done, that they'll be able to stay healthy for most, if not all, of the season. And we know that the way that the coverages are dictated, at least in the Donatel defense, is that what pressure you can provide will dictate what coverages you have the ability to demonstrate. And so if you don't have the ability to get to the quarterback quickly, you're going to play a lot of off coverage. You're going to play a lot of simple coverages. You're not going to kind of try to confuse the offense with your defense. But I think that we'll have that capability with that, pressure up front. That's going to create some pretty interesting defenses. I think more so than the Joe Barry defenses. Packers running a very similar one. I think on offense, you've got an offense that I think is going to be even more aggressive. Now, Kirk Cousins has always thrown the ball deeper and more aggressively than people seem to think, but the way that Cousins has talked about this offense and the way O'Connell wants to design this offense is going to push the ball a little bit more, take advantage of the contested catch capability that both Thielen and Jefferson have. I think that's going to give you a lot of opportunities. It's going to create more space in the running game, and I think that's going to help you. This is the best 2-minute drill we've ever seen from Kirk Cousins in camp. I think that's going to continue, allow them to win some games.
And that was the best 1-minute drill I've ever seen from Arif Hasan. Luke Braun, let's hear it.
All right. So the Packers' whole thing, they are projected to have one of the best defenses in the league, but a lot of that relies on ifs. If Rashawn Gary takes a step forward, if Kenny Clark stays healthy, there are a lot of unknowns. If Rasul Douglas can keep up that pace, right? Which, despite moving inside, a lot of those things can go wrong. And we have seen that firsthand with those kind of ifs not going well for the Vikings, if Danielle Hunter can stay healthy, etc. And I agree with Arif. I think that the research that we have shows that both za'darius and Danielle Hunter have the ability to stay as healthy as you're going to get. The other big thing nobody's talked about yet, Aaron Rodgers is 38. Time catches up to us all. Nobody's immune to it, not even if you do ayahuasca in the desert. So there is a world where you go into week one. Week one games are weird. Weird stuff happens. Suddenly the Vikings have a tiebreaker and they can make this happen. And both teams win 11 games and you get it on tiebreakers.
Yeah. If the Packers lose, or whoever loses, they have to sit on that tiebreaker for 16 weeks because they don't get a chance to even it up until week 17. So that is going to loom pretty large. Obviously, the Vikings don't want to not have that tiebreaker going into that game. I'm wasting time. I think it's going to require the Packers to regress and the Vikings to obviously stay healthy and take a step forward. But I do think it's a little bit of both. The Packers are 8 games above their Pythagorean win-loss in the last 3 seasons. They've won 39. They should have won about 31, and that's unprecedented. They've been defying the odds now for several years, staving off regression. 13 wins is not a sustainable pace in the NFL, and yet they've done it for 3 consecutive years. So it is very hard, I think, to underestimate them when they keep proving the models wrong, and they have a roster that's as good as this one. But it doesn't take much to lose 2 extra games in the NFL. Their one-score win rate in one-score games is 14 out of 20 in the last 3 years, and that's probably unsustainable as well. So I think the Packers are still due to come back to the pack, and the Vikings have to stay healthy. And Kevin O'Connell's got to be good at this. I mean, Kevin O'Connell has to know how to manage a team when they lose, how to manage a team when they're behind in the game,
Why
how to
do we
manage
even
a
have a
team in the
timer?
2-minute
What's
drill.
going on here?
I think
What was the point of the
segue
timer?
That was not clean management on my part. I'll own that. I'll wear it. Shoot your arrows at me. Give me a weapon on either side of the ball. Somebody that the other fan
A spear.
base is going to scratch their head and say, who's beating us right now? And why does his name rhyme with Finney Flongflu, Luke Braun?
Well, I'll leave that one for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
People don't know about KJ Osborne. Like, they should know about KJ Osborne. He looks fantastic in camp. He looks like, if not sustaining what he did last year, maybe even taking a step forward. And I predicted on Locked On Vikings that just went up this morning that by season's end, KJ Osborne will have outproduced Adam Thielen. I'm really high on this dude.
Where you got that take from? Interesting.
I've had that take for weeks. I've just been scared to say it.
Sure. No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But like,
he's flummoxed.
KJ Osborne.
Imagine how you feel if you were the one
decided not
that first discovered the guy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I alone know who KJ Osborne is. But like, he's got a lot more of a skill set than I think we know, than I think like other fans of other teams will know. And that means, if you're going to attack Rasul Douglas, that might be KJ Osborne setting up in the slot or setting up in a bunch, or the other guy in a stack that, Jair Alexander is going to take Justin Jefferson, and now you've got Rasul Douglas on KJ Osborne. And because he can be on the field like every snap, because he's versatile and he has such a varied skill set, I could see that guy just popping off randomly for 100 yards in a game. Shoot, could be this one.
I think Osborne is probably the best possible answer, at least on the Vikings side of the ball. His current ADP is something like 214, right? So it's like he's not even getting drafted in a ton of leagues. And I think that, he's got flex starter upside. Just to contextualize it, right? I think that Osborne really does have that opportunity in front of him. But if I'm going to pick someone besides Osborne for the Vikings, I don't know. Why not go CJ Ham? I'm writing a piece about how the Vikings are going to use him, so he's on the top of my mind. But also, it's not necessarily that he'll get 60 yards or anything like that. He might only get like 15. He might not get any. But I think that his usage will help kind of dictate what the Vikings are able to do offensively, what personnel the other team will put on the field. I mean, Luke was talking about, putting 2 running backs on the field for the Packers. Vikings will do the same thing, put offense on the field to dictate what coverage, the Packers are producing and be able to attack that. So I think that CJ Ham has that opportunity. On the other side of the ball, actually, I think the one that we want to watch out for, though, is Robert Tonyan. I don't think Vikings fans are completely unfamiliar with who he is, but I think there's been a lot of talk about what that receiver group is going to do. Oh my gosh, Sammy Watkins. Is Alan Lazard going to be healthy enough to lead the team in receiving, this week? Is there going to be, something from Romeo Doubs? Is Christian Watson capable? All of these things are questions, but big Robert Tonyan, Big Bob, he's there. He catches big touchdowns. I think that that's going to be something that the Vikings are going to have to watch out for, and Vikings fans are going to have to be reminded of.
Yeah, I could go a lot of ways with this. I thought about going Jalen Reagor just so Philly people would just spam this. I mean, the share of this.
Get yourself
but no, I think on the defensive side of the ball for the Vikings, Harrison Phillips, obviously his addition. I think people have talked about it this preseason and what he's shown. But I think with this defensive scheme specifically, and just how important it is to kind of mug up the gaps in the run game with who the Packers have at running back and 2 obviously dynamic players, I think Harrison Phillips is going to be really important in this game, and probably just obviously doesn't. Za'Darius Smith, being the former Packer, gets much more play. So I think that's the name that came to my mind. I also think it's just going to be fascinating to see if Irv Smith is indeed healthy, how he's going to be used in this offense, given the Vikings' weapons. You know how many they have, but what will Irv Smith's role be? I think if I look at both sides of the ball, it's probably Harrison Phillips, Irv Smith for me, and just fascination of what those 2 guys will bring.
Yeah, I think at the tight end level, the guy that would shock everyone, Vikings fans included, will be Johnny Munt. If Johnny Munt has any meaningful role in this passing game. And it's not outlandish that he would, with Irv Smith having done
2 catches,
very
2 yards,
little.
2 touchdowns.
Yeah. the Chris Herndon role, except much more productive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Roll
No.
that Asiata.
There it is.
Hey,
There it is.
you need a yard, he'll get you 3. You need 5, he'll get you 3. Munt would be a shocker, but I think that the correct answer is Kene Nwangwu, because he really hasn't established himself as anything yet as an offensive player. He's a special teams demon, but 13 rushing attempts last year and 4 receptions for only 9 yards. So it's not as if he took a screen pass to the house last year. Hasn't really shown it yet in an NFL game. But I think he needs to be used as much as Alexander Madison. It should be 50-50. If you're giving Cook a series, then give Madison a little bit, back to Cook, back to Nwangwu. Back to Cook, back to Madison, Cook, Wong. Give him half of what you would ordinarily have given Madison, and use more of a rotation. Last year, they had Kennedy Palomalu as the snap count monitor, more or less. But his version of monitoring was saying, Dalvin, you feel good? Yep, I do, coach. I got a bum labrum, and my foot hurts, and my knee's almost blown out. I feel great. All right, get in there, Dalvin. That's how the Vikings managed snap counts last year. They're going to be smarter about it this year.
No,
they have to
that's
be.
true. That's true. Dalvin for 9 games at least this season, last season, just could not turn up field and have any burst. It was sad. He had 40 yards in front of him. He'd get 8.
Yeah, watching him plant and then just crumble was so deflating. You only saw healthy Dalvin for one game. Was it Cincinnati or was it Arizona where he got hurt?
It was I thought it was at least the 2 games, right? Because I thought it was Arizona because that's the fumble. But we also saw him at the end of the season restore some of that burst. So
Pittsburgh game, yep.
3-4 games, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not a lot, and that's been a problem. So use him less and get more out of him. Less is more is the cliche. Before we get to our rank 'em segment, I want to rank the first 6 Vikings games on the schedule leading up to the bye. A reminder that you can check out Luke Braun and myself on the Locked On Vikings postcast. That is after every single Vikings game. The second the clock hits 0, and knowing Vikings games, it probably will come down to that final play. Hey, maybe even extra time. So check that out, Locked On Vikings postcast. And Locked On Twins postcast as well with Brandon Warren and Nash Walker. They are hammering every single Twins game the instant it's done. That's on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Subscribe on YouTube. All right, rank 'em. There are 6 Vikings games before the bye. Packers, Eagles, Lions, Saints, Bears, and Dolphins. Let's rank them. What is the toughest Vikings game leading up to the bye here? Is it the Packers, or is there a sneaky other team that might be more difficult? Alec, I'll give you the first crack at this one.
I mean, not with the starters not having played in the preseason and having learned an entirely new scheme on both sides, I think, and facing this type of opponent with this type of quarterback, I mean, I can't get out of my mind. Yesterday, Harrison Phillips was talking about Aaron Rodgers and talking about trash talking him in the first game they played each other, Cal, Stanford, going back and forth. But then Harrison Phillips said he learned in that game facing Aaron Rodgers that he picks up. I mean, whatever stance you're in, however your leg is angled, Aaron Rodgers can pick up that type of just intricacy. And I think when you're going up against a quarterback like this in this first game with new schemes, it just makes it very tough. There's expectations, obviously, to not be middling the way things have been in years past. So I'm going to go with this game. I'm sure there's some difficulty in flying to London or what have you. And I'm sure there are going to be challenges covering Tyreek Hill, et cetera. But no, I think this game, to me, just stands out in terms of the first 6. So, yeah.
So do you think Packers is hardest? Does everybody agree with that?
Yes, but I do want to throw in there that the Vikings always underperform against the Bears. And you just kind of have to account for that. Now, it is a home game, not an away game. So if that was an away game, I might say that was a sneaky pick to take the top. But yeah, I think the Packers is the best game. The thing is, genuinely, if we avoid the superstitious juju conversation, the Eagles one is going to be the most interesting. The Vikings have historically had issues with running quarterbacks. Obviously, new defense every year, who knows? But also, this is maybe the best roster top to bottom. And so that's the kind of the interesting element of that. Plus, away game.
I think the Eagles are really hard.
Away game, night game.
And I've actually got them as harder than the Packers just because it's everything that the Vikings struggle with, like outside, on grass, Cousins prime time. And I know that that's been a little debunked in recent years, but that to me stands out as a more difficult setting. Luke Braun, back to your point, because I kind of clomped on you there, and I want you to finish your point. So you're saying that Rodgers is a sure thing, but then Hurts, Goff,
do we know
Fields,
Jalen Hurts is good?
Tua,
They feel good about him.
So you're bringing into question like all 5 of them might be bad.
All 5 of them, like we don't have it's not a scary quarterback. Like, oh shoot, Aaron Rodgers, you got to prep for him. Jalen Hurts might just suck, right? Jameis Winston might throw 5 picks, and you might just like have that one, right? I don't think Jalen Hurts is gonna suck, but there's like an uncertainty, I guess.
I think.
And then
I'm going to butt in just real quick. I think our framework for this is wrong. It's not might they be good. I think the default position is that those 5 are bad, and that they have to prove us wrong on that, right? Like all of our priors tell us that these quarterbacks are not good. Now, I think that there's a world of upside for Jalen Hurts. I think you could say something about Jameis Winston being a really intelligent quarterback that threw a bunch of picks but finally fixed his eyes. Like the LASIK thing might be real, right? Like there's all kinds of things. I love it. This is the funniest storyline in the world to me. But I think that like, he was just blind? Like that, okay, yeah, sure. And he didn't get LASIK in college because he was literally just too young to get
downfield.
Right, the squinting, right? And it's like his issue with interceptions, he literally just didn't see them, right? So he's like, might as well throw contest. Like, it makes
that explains
sense. I love it. Right, it's amazing.
Yeah,
but like,
that was a Packers jersey. I thought it was an open patch
oh my
of
god,
grass.
The pewter and the green. I don't know. But yeah, I think our default position on all of these, except for Aaron Rodgers, is that they're bad, and any hype about them is pushing uphill against that. Sorry, Luke, I stepped all over your point just after Sam did it, but like the framework to me of this question was all wrong. What do you mean? Are we sure Jalen Hurts is good? It's the opposite.
Let's rank the quarterbacks then.
No, yeah.
So Rodgers is the clear number 1. So then who's number 2?
Fantasy points, Jalen Hurts. I think
like it very much could be not Hurts.
I was hoping one of you guys said Jared Goff.
Well, okay, so statistically, historically, it'd be Jared Goff, but we kind of know the story there. So
he's the one we know what to expect from
Jameis
the
Winston
most.
too.
The least question marks around Jared Goff. That doesn't mean that it's good, but it means that we are very certain about what we are going to see.
Yeah, real quick, my rankings are Rodgers, Jameis, because I think that style of play where you just throw touchdowns or picks and nothing in between, that actually tends to be better than it isn't. It's just the year he got fired, it wasn't. 7 of them were pick sixes, right? But I think just generally speaking, that style of play tends to work out a little bit better. So to me, it's Rodgers, Winston, then Hurts, then Tua, then big gap Tua, big gap Fields, then Goff. And I from a Vikings fan perspective, obviously you don't want Fields to be good, but from like I care more about my takes than I care about the Vikings season. And my take says that Justin Fields was a great pick and the Vikings should have picked him. So for myself, I hope that Justin Fields ends up as the best or second best of this group.
I mean, at this stage with with Fields, Tua, and Hurts, I mean, you're just shaking them up and just rolling the dice because any of them could take that step. Like, and it's kind of Spider-Man meme-y. They're all just standing in a room like, who's gonna improve this year? Right. Particularly Tua and Hurts are in year 3, correct? So they're kind of at that critical stage that Murray was going into last year, where you might have looked at Murray in kind of a Fieldsy way, and now you don't. Now he's elevated himself above that. So I think it's a compelling argument from a quarterback standpoint, and I hadn't thought of it like that, Luke. So I'm glad you brought that up. In terms of team difficulty, Packers and Eagles probably 1-2, Saints and Dolphins probably 3-4 in some order.
Dolphins have a sneaky good
I think
roster.
I'd go in that order. Yeah, I think the Saints roster is pretty pretty good actually.
And then I think the
but,
Lions have a better roster than the Bears, right?
Yeah. I go Lions, Bears. I don't know what the Bears are like great at, and I know what the Lions are great at, and it's offensive and defensive lines.
Yeah.
Right. So I probably
Does anyone know, like on Chicago Bears Twitter, are people upset that their roster is bad? Like, did they expect
really
polls
hard.
to come in?
There's a lot of
Did they
cope.
expect polls to come in and just make them an instant contender, or did they embrace kind of a teardown?
It's like
happening.
Velus Jones is the truth. Like they're secretly they got all the best players.
There's a lot of like convincing themselves that this like 30-year-old rookie is good. That the fifth round offensive tackle legitimately won a starting competition and is therefore good. Right. They're trading Kevin Jenkins because they've got a great offensive line. There's no place to put him. He's a good player, but he deserves to start. Yeah, surplus, right? It's a lot of that, right? Like, oh man, when we claimed Armand Watts and Amir Smith-Marset, I mean, those were just genius moves, right? The 6 other teams or whatever ahead of us. Yeah, they claimed 7 players, but the roster's good.
Yeah, because everybody else is cutting players that the Bears see as starters. It's a rough world. Let talk to them at like week 4 when they've actually had to watch these guys play football.
Yeah, and then Justin Fields is going to take a step forward. So,
Yeah, always.
Very real alternate reality, though, where Poles takes over the Vikings and maybe the Wilfs were so like iron-fisted about like making sure that they stay contenders. So maybe he listens to that and they do the same thing. But if not, a real alternate reality where Poles comes to Minnesota and just tears this down too, which would be a sad. Like, I know that I endorse that, but man, it would be sad to be in that spot. Like going into a season with really no realistic anticipation, unless you're Dub Bears guys on SNL.
The heart's too big.
Alec, you're coming from a successful sports city.
I am arriving from. Yeah, I mean, I've watched Patrick Mahomes play a lot of football over the last 6 weeks. I was talking to another media member yesterday about what that's been like and what that might be like, considering him.
Identical.
I mean, it'll be but no, I mean, it was interesting as you were talking about that just now, Sam, like tearing it down and not having so many expectations. That happens so often in baseball just because of the competitive balance. And I covered the Kansas City Royals before this, and so. It really is brutal at times when your team just isn't really in it. I mean, they'll try to be and they'll start, but when that's not the case, there is no anticipation. Then when you're playing 162 games, it's an entirely different thing. And so, no, I mean, I think that's why for as much as Vikings fans feel the way they do about what's happened in recent years, I mean, to go into this thing a little bit uncertain with the ability to dream a little bit, if you have that optimism in your heart, I don't know. I think there's an interesting element that brings.
Are the Royals going to win World Series again? By the way, I'm curious. Are they building towards something? Like, is this sort of the reboot of how they won it before with what they're trying to do now?
Well, I know this is why everybody tuned in the first place, so I'm glad I'm glad I could provide.
The floor is yours.
This. Yeah, no, are the Royals? I think it's all going to matter. Pitching is everything, especially in a small market when you can't go out and pay for it. So if they can kind of fix their pitching development and produce guys that they've drafted and signed, I think it could trend in the way that they've wanted it to. But like I said, with the small market. In that sport, it's just very, very difficult. And so you kind of just have to be pretty perfect and probably have some things go your way, which is what happened for them in 14 and 15.
Alec, I do have a little activity for you just to put you on the spot a little bit and to sort of welcome you through initiation into this Vikings media market and this podcast. We appreciate you being on. I have a Jeopardy category for you. There's one category, not a whole board. Category is Vikings Villains. If there's anything that you need to be sort of well-versed on as you enter this market, it's the people from the past that have hurt the Vikings fans and torn their hearts out. So I've got 5 questions for you, 5 trivia questions. If you get them wrong, that's fine. This is an educational experience.
I
So-
am overjoyed right now. Oh my gosh.
Arif is beaming.
So, Alec,
Arif's so yeah.
You got Vikings Villains, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 imaginary dollars. Where would you like to start?
500. Get that out of the way. But I'm probably gonna go 0 for 5, and so it's gonna look like I'm just being dunked on here. They're gonna be like, "How could you not?" But it is what it is. I'm new.
No, you're right. You're right. Vikings fans will be yelling at their phones or computers. But for 500,
That's not new, by the way.
no, yeah. In the 1987 NFC Championship game, Vikings journeyman backup Wade Wilson threw an incomplete pass on 4th and goal to this player whose quote-unquote drop cost the Vikings a chance at a Super Bowl.
I love
Well,
how
in
Arif and I knew this
1987
instantly.
Yeah,
It's like you
guys
said
look like you were all over
1987.
it. 1987, I was -10. So it's not like you can't go back and watch old games. So I don't. Yeah, sorry, but if you guys are gonna dunk on me, I'm coming right back. Sorry.
Fair.
I'm gonna lob this
No,
up
you
to
got
these
it.
other guys. I've got no. I mean,
Can I give you a hint?
There's just
That won't help.
yeah, but it's probably not
But it
gonna
makes it
help.
hurt
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
They, in the draft, when they drafted this player, it was a first-round pick, and they could have had Marcus Allen.
Interesting.
Luke Braun knows this.
Doesn't help, but it's interesting. It's another interesting note to the whole deal. I'm fascinated, really.
Yeah, the answer is Darren Nelson. It was a little pass to the near side, like the near pylon, and it was a kind of a contested catch. It was in traffic. Maybe went through his hands, maybe not. There's definitely like ambiguity as to whose fault it was, and the play call was kind of bad too. But that drop has been associated with Darren Nelson, 1987. So that was the toughest
some
one. It
viewing
only gets
material
easier
also.
from here.
Put that on the oral history list right now.
Yeah.
So the 500 category is out.
Yeah, 100. I want to take it down a notch so I can still look. So I can look worse, probably.
Okay. This Vikings kicker who attended the University of Georgia missed a 27-yard field goal in the 2015 wild card game in negative temperatures to cost the Vikings a win.
So I'm from Alabama, big college football guy. Arif knows this. I told him this the other day. So Georgia kickers, it's not totally out of the realm that I would know it from that. I should not. I mean, 2015 is not that long ago, and I've watched a lot of football, so I should probably just know the kicker in the moment. And when you say the name, I'm gonna know it, but I'm not sure if I can snag it.
He cameoed once in an episode of The League.
Come on.
How is that helpful?
BW. When you say it,
Director Matt
No,
is
I-
trolling you now.
when you yeah. when you say it, I'll know. But
Blair
I mean,
Walsh.
yeah, Blair Walsh, of course.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah.
To be your tongue.
Alec.
I know Blair Walsh.
All right,
it's bad.
so-
It's bad. That was 100.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. The goal here is to get one. We just got to get on the board. So we've got a 200, a 300, a 400.
Let's work our way. Let's work our way up. 200. I want to knock one off the
200.
board, and then we can. Yeah.
Okay. The Minnesota Vikings were the NFL's best team in 1998. This kicker had not missed a field goal all season until his fateful miss in the NFC Championship game that would have sealed.
It still hurts us just to hear it referenced.
Honestly, I would have thought this was the $100 one because it just is
Yeah.
always on the brains of Vikings fans.
I thought recency might make the Blair
that's
Walsh
fair.
a little easier for him.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
This is
tough.
actually an
But,
interesting. It's an interesting study to see like how aware people are nationally of like Viking fan
Yeah.
problems. You know,
Yeah.
like it feels like this is plastered on anyone above the age
Gotta
of
stop
Oh my
watch.
God.
30.
Gotta stop watch on this.
All right.
Come
What are the
on. There's a
initials
How
on
I
this
Met Your
guy?
Mother episode that references this.
GA. Old veteran kicker, South African.
Longtime Steeler.
Extremely reliable.
Number 1, had the
except for once.
crossbar helmet.
You're
I'll
gonna
put you
have
out
to
of
give
your
it to me,
misery.
Sam.
Gary Anderson. Gary
Okay. I
Anderson.
wouldn't have gotten that, but it makes sense.
You're taking notes.
It's called
right?
the
I mean,
Gary
this is-
Anderson game. That one's, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Arif
not
is
talking about the Gary Anderson game down in
judging
Birmingham,
big time.
Alabama too much.
They're not?
They should be.
Okay. You've got... Oh.
They should be.
1 in 31 chance here, Alec. In
Okay.
2003, I'm not even going to make you guess the player. Nate Poole caught a touchdown on the final play of the season to knock the Vikings out of the playoffs. What team did he play for?
2003. Arif looks hurt.
I'm perfectly.
We're
rational.
both very hurt. This all hurts a lot.
I'm fine.
Yeah. This is
2003. Man.
this was a bad team too. This was a bottom 3 team that had reason to lose the game. And yet they were down 17-6, scored a touchdown, missed the 2, got an onside kick, marched down the field, last play of the game, touchdown, game over. Nate Poole, mobbed by his teammates, Vikings in tears, and the team was Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona.
So I didn't
Wouldn't
even
have gotten it. Wouldn't have got it.
Rookie Josh McCown.
Hey, Josh.
Crazy.
Talked to Josh the other day. Wow.
Was McCown drafted?
Oh, that's interesting.
I do not know.
That would be
I'm like
undrafted one draft.
uncomfortable by Alex squirming now. Like I feel like
third round
we've pushed him past
Yeah,
his brink.
I'm
We've got
sweating. I'm here sweating. I'm like, this is horrible. I mean, this is awful.
Is
But-
this one? Is the next one at least the 1975?
yes.
Okay.
It
This is
is.
NFL.
We're
history,
gonna
not
have-
just Vikings history.
We're gonna
Yeah,
have Chad Graff
That,
on the
that
show
one's
soon.
ubiquitous enough, you might know.
We're gonna quiz Chad Graff about Patriots history and make him feel just
Yeah, I
as
was
bad.
about to say. I thought you were going to say you're going to have Chad and ask him these same questions. He's going to get them all right. And then I look work. I mean, it's like, what are we doing?
Wait, what's going on here?
Yeah. Oh boy.
1975, there was the original Hail Mary from Staubach to this wide receiver who pushed off to score a touchdown for the Cowboys and break the Vikings' hearts and deny them a chance at the NFC Championship game.
I should probably know this one too. But
Legend of the 70s.
if I gave you an answer, then I can't do it. I can't do it.
Drew Pearson
playoff win.
is the answer.
Wouldn't have gotten that. But good to
Drew
know.
Pearson.
Oh man, he was what was he taunting Eagles fans at the draft a couple years ago? That actually ruled.
Yeah, it would rule if we didn't like specifically.
Right? Yeah,
get
if
him.
there wasn't a very specific history. Yeah.
Alec, you're a good sport. Thank you for playing
Thanks for
along.
doing
No, I was
And
a good sport, but horrible
Honestly,
player.
it hurt us more than it hurt you. If we're being
Yeah, that's what. And like people
Just
watching,
hearing
they're
about
like,
it.
people watching, they're like, this sucks. We have to relive the worst moments ever, while this new
Oh,
beat writer has
You need
no
to understand
idea.
this about Vikings fans. They buy into the pain. They opt in. They want
Okay.
to be
Okay.
hurt and relive these painful memories because it's part of the identity building process for Vikings fans. It's,
Okay.
it's a reminder
yeah,
of who you are at your core. They very much
like people
relish
who
it,
watch
you
The
know it.
Notebook. That
Yes.
You like to feel something, anything.
Yeah, sure, whatever that means. Yeah,
Of all, okay, yep.
there's so many movies you could have picked.
More stereotypically sad than The Notebook.
I don't know anything about The Notebook.
What movies make you cry, Arif? Last movie you cried
Okay,
at.
so I don't really cry at movies, but a crying story I remember is at the end of Spider-Man 2, obviously, the huge tearjerker, right? Where he leaves MJ, he's like, I
don't know.
The person sitting next to me was asleep for the first half of the movie and was bawling at the scene where Spider-Man leaves MJ. And I was like, how could you possibly have? I mean, I'm sure you saw Spider-Man 1, but how could you possibly have like the context to be this upset where Spider-Man's like, hey, I'm not going to tell you I'm Spider-Man, but everyone knows that you know that I know that you know. And I just have some more important stuff to do in my life than be with you, MJ. They're at a cemetery. So that's the memory I have of someone bawling in a movie theater. It's the end of Spider-Man 2 where they missed half the movie. Must have been an amazing scene.
The caption, if you're watching on YouTube, sums it up. Right here.
Yeah.
Story,
Well, okay,
bro.
how about this? How
Cool
about
story,
Lord of the
bro.
Rings? Everyone was sad when Gandalf died, and you maybe didn't read the books and realize he'd come back. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Just ruined it.
imagine that stunner. This is how we end each show, Alec. We go around in a circle and we give our party foul. And it's the biggest blunder you saw in pop culture, in sports, in your life from the last few days. So we'll let you think about that and run the animation. All right, Alec, what's your party foul?
So I watched, I said I was a big college football guy. I watched LSU lose the other night, Brian Kelly lose. Not that upset that Brian Kelly lost. I apologize. But the party foul is he barely got Keyshawn Boot the ball. And, Keyshawn, I think he deleted all the stuff on social media as he should. Like, he is one of the best receivers in the country. You're in a very close game, in an important game, first game of coaching career as for Brian Kelly here at LSU. Not here. I don't know why I said here. And you're not getting your best playmaker the ball. That was horrible. But again, as I said at the top, really wasn't that upset for Brian Kelly.
It's a good party foul, though.
Good one.
Yeah.
Arif?
I'm going to go with...
So the Vikings... go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I think... actually, both Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think that both of them would be better suited approaching this a little bit differently. Lamar Jackson is essentially, maybe not holding out is the wrong word, but delaying negotiations on a new contract to be presumably the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, because that's how salary caps and quarterback salaries work. And the Ravens aren't budging. Now, the Ravens have a very smart front office, and Lamar Jackson is probably playing this right. But the reason that this is a party foul is, first, that the Ravens, while generally smart, should lock down Lamar Jackson as soon as possible before he gets another MVP and increases his price, and more importantly, shops himself in free agency, because I think that's an actual genuine issue that you have to deal with. I don't think Lamar Jackson is as beholden to the Ravens as vice versa. But second, the reason it's party foul on Lamar Jackson is that he should hire an agent. I don't think that this is true for all players who don't have an agent. In fact, I think Lamar Jackson is probably playing it correctly right now by refusing to take the deal that the Ravens have. But the reason he should hire an agent is because he's not going to have the ability to negotiate while the season is happening. He just won't. He doesn't even have the ability to negotiate while training camp is happening. He needs representation that's going to negotiate on his behalf, and it's going to get him more than the 3% return that the agent is going to take out of the cut of the salary. And I think that agent would be able to do that. And more importantly, will be able to get some of the finer points of the detail taken care of for him. Stuff like, making sure he gets entirely his salary when he goes on injured reserve or something along those lines. Stuff like, making sure that the no trade clause is constructed correctly. Stuff like likely to be earned versus unlikely to be earned incentives. These small details that agents have the ability to take care of while you're going out there winning football games. I think that the macro play by Jackson is correct. Reject the deal. But I think that the micro play, that might hurt him in the long run. So I think it's a party foul on both sides.
I'm going to go with the Vikings, and they voted for all of their captains this year, and no Justin Jefferson. He seems to be like he's one of the leaders of the team. He's supposed to step up and be one of the leaders of the team, but to not be recognized as one of the leaders of the team is either a party foul on the voting population that is the Vikings, or a party foul on Justin Jefferson for not earning it. I don't know which one it is, but that's kind of a bummer.
Player,
you want to see... He's like the leader. He's the personality of the
best
team.
Players. I don't know, man. Like, Brian Robinson was a more important leader than Everson Griffin, but Everson Griffin was undoubtedly the better player. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that Justin Jefferson is like his personality has leaked into the entire team and the way that they act.
I guess the question is,
recognize
like,
that.
who would you drop? Who would you drop then? Like, I can't remember the list off the top, but they have a limit for how many they can have. So who would not
Sure.
get captaincy?
I would probably give it over Ham or Cook to.
First of all,
Ham was not.
is the special
Ham
teams
was
captain,
special
right?
teams. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
special
you
teams.
can't. Yeah.
So over, I as much as like Dalvin Cook, absolutely a leader on the team as well, or Brian O'Neill. I just think that Justin Jefferson's energy has permeated the team in such a way that leadership deserves to be recognized.
Yeah. Well,
is a
I do
silly
agree
one.
that I don't think you need a special teams captain. That was a team choice, if I'm not mistaken.
But I
So you
needed to
didn't-
come up with a party foul in about 30 seconds because Alec took mine.
And your
So,
party foul was democracy?
was this democracy?
Wow. That's phenomenal mic drop. Party foul. I just got an email that the Vikings have signed Duke Shelley to the practice squad, and they've terminated T.Y. McGill. Injury settlement.
Yep.
He got hurt, but the party
Yeah,
foul
I
is that
know,
he got
but-
hurt.
Oh man.
I wanted
Aw,
I
man.
wanted Ty to be a thing. I wanted the Ty dance. I wanted to do the dance on this podcast. Now the dance is dead. There's no more Ty. It doesn't work for Ross Bullard. There is no Ross Bullard dance. There is no
Jonathan Bullard?
Harrison Ross.
Ross
That's a Blacklock
Blacklock.
Bullard
Yeah.
hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's who's going to start at 5 Tech now.
Right. Ross Bullard.
Ross
yeah,
Bullard.
that's fair actually. Yeah.
Totally talked my way into that one.
17 combined
All
starts
right.
between the two of them. Yeah.
Oh, Alec, you're never going to join us again, but thank you for joining us today. We've scared
No,
you
I
off,
definitely
think.
will. I definitely will. I can't. The fireplace is mesmerizing. I mean, it looks like the coziest podcast setup I've ever seen. It's crazy. I mean, look at it. It looks so comfortable in there. So no, I mean, thanks for having me. I would like to be in that type of location after I have to go 0 for 5 in Jeopardy with Vikings Villains. So no. Anyway, thanks for having
Just
me.
keep doing this to him every time he shows up. Just ask him questions he cannot possibly answer.
It's horrible.
Increasingly
back.
obscure.
Yeah, the next time it'll be like deep dive on the Les Steckel era. Something
Yeah,
absurd like
who's Hardware Hank? Let's go over that. Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. That's where you get the videos on YouTube or the podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And check out the postcast with Luke Braun and myself. Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. Arif Hasan, The Athletic. Alec Lewis, The Athletic, in for Luke Inman, who will be back on Thursday, where we have predictions for the season. We'll put them on record, and we'll have a clever gambling game that we like to do and a contest that will start for the season. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. This has been the Minnesota Football Party.